Okay, I know this review is really late. I did not plan to review the show, which is why I didn't make a review when the show first came out. Honestly, though, I haven't reviewed anything that came out recently. X-Men 97? Great. What If Season 3? So, let's just take the band-aid off. This show was weirdly uncomfortable, and not in a good way. There are so many moments in the show where I just felt like weird. And I don't know how to describe it. It's just strange, to say the least. It also just feels like a weird start to the new DC universe. Like, legitimately, all the ways you could start it, this is the way. And I think part of the reason that is because this was written and directed before James Gunn was made president of the DC universe, or DC even decided to reboot. Which means that at some point, this was most certainly set in the regular previous Snyderverse DC universe, which explains some of Amanda Waller's characterization, the look that Batman has, and Gotham in general. I guess they just came in later in the animation process and added these scenes with the David Cornsett Superman and Starfire? Okay, I see you. The show basically starts out with this character named Cersei, who's essentially just a crazy Amazonian witch who has managed to basically galvanize these anti-woke dude bros into like doing what she wants. It's basically just a Sons of Themyscira thing from the comics, except they actually point out how stupid it is. Basically, these guys are just angry about the fact that, well, there's a land with just women in it. Despite the fact that these dudes are pretty, how do I say it? Weird. These guys probably shouldn't be allowed near women, honestly. But, due to the fallout of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, Amanda Waller is no longer allowed to use humans in her task forces. So she ends up just using monsters. And we're introduced to Rick Flag Sr., who's the father of the Rick Flag who died in that one other Suicide Squad movie. It's kind of confusing that it's called The Suicide Squad. Like, kind of hard to distinguish the two, honestly. Now, I know some people can go and point out the fact that half of these guys aren't even creatures. I mean, even the ones who are distinctly not human are technically machines. I mean, Dr. Phosphorus, Nina are literally just regular old humans, especially in the case of Nina. I guess you could also argue that the bride is a human because she's just cut up and sewn together human parts. But I'm not really here to argue the semantics on this, especially since there seems to be quite a bit of crossover between the characters who are on the Creature Commandos and the Suicide Squad. The only returning member of the Suicide Squad, funny enough, is Weasel, voiced by Sean Gunn, who voices two characters in this show because he also voices G.I. Robot. And he's playing Maxwell Lord, so I don't know. It's pretty impressive that dude's going to be playing three different characters in the same universe, honestly. Plot we're given initially is that they have to protect this princess from some sort of assassination attempt or something. And here's my main issue. She's like 20 years old or something. And for some reason, she's super horned up for Rick Flag Sr., who is literally the father of this Rick Flag, who is a grown man, like this guy's easily in his like 50s, 60s, something, right? Especially since James basically revealed on Twitter that like he had some sort of like thing done to him so he doesn't age as much or something. This is just creepy though. And I'd be okay with them just doing this, right? If they didn't continuously acknowledge the age thing. It's just kind of creepy. I mean, she literally is talking about how she's like into older guys and stuff, and it's just weird. Just really strange. Feels hella inappropriate, and it's so strange that this just all happens in episode one. And I remember a whole bunch of people knew that Clayface was going to be in this show, but I remember people throwing around the idea that this was not actually the princess and that bro slept with Clayface disguised as the princess. And and I was so happy they didn't go with that because honestly, that's almost worse. Like, that's literally just like the whole like I accidentally slept with a man type thing, and it's like we don't really need that, man. First off, the implications of that are just straight up disgusting. I mean, that's just there's no informed consent there, and also that's just weird. I don't quite remember the order we got these origins in, but I do remember whose was last, so let's just spitball them here. Dr. Phosphorus. Yeah, this guy's origins are basically that he just wanted to cure cancer and a bunch of other diseases. He was married, he had a kid. He was basically just living his life and trying to do what had to do, but he ended up getting mixed up with a shady group of people who then framed him for the murder of his family and then killed him. And he ended up basically being put into this like radioactive conductor thing. Honestly, it's pretty dark, especially him getting his revenge on Rupert Thorne by killing his family. It's somewhere I usually just don't see like fictional universes go most of the time. Like most things wouldn't have the balls to allow the guy who had his family killed to go and kill the other guy's family. It just makes the scenes with him and this little girl that you see later on all the more tragic though. Speaking of that, Weasel's origins are also kind of cool, I guess. I mean, it plays out like one of those like 80s films if that kind of makes sense. Basically, he didn't kill any of those children. The whole idea when he was introduced in The Suicide Squad was that he had killed 28 children. The show immediately whittles that down to 8 and then also says that, well, actually, none of that happened. And I always had my doubts on Weasel killing those kids, but yeah, this episode is just so sad if you really think about it because Weasel wasn't doing anything wrong. Even the fire wasn't his fault. He was just a Weasel. And it's also sad because nobody will really ever know that Weasel didn't do anything. I think his relationship with some of the other characters is also kind of funny because he is just like a big dog. It's kind of a departure from Weasel's origins in the comics where he's like a human scientist who turned himself into a weasel. In this universe, I guess he's just like some creature that's always existed, but I kind of like how ambiguous it is, to be fair. I think that confirming that he's like a human adult male would kind of be weird though, considering how they've been treating him for this whole universe. G.I. Robot. You could argue that G.I. Robot probably has the best origin story in this entire show. He was a robot designed specifically to kill Nazis, and that's exactly what he does. And that's kind of what lands him in jail. There's something sincere about his character. He really does just miss the good old days of being with his bros. If anything, he misses the camaraderie, but he also really doesn't know how to fight his program. He's kind of the opposite of Ultron in a way. You question whether or not he even has free will. It's also tragic considering the fact that he was designed with the idea of killing Nazis. And after the war stopped, he never really had a purpose. But he was never given really even time to question his purpose. He's basically adopted by neo-Nazis in contemporary America in the modern day. I think it's funny because it kind of calls out a lot of like neo-Nazis and stuff. And I think it's funny because James doesn't just like make them a complete parody. They're not over here wearing diapers and crying. They're just people who are bad, and you kind of get the sense that they're not trying. They in some way think that they're doing something good even though they're terrible people. I'm just going to talk about Frankenstein and the Brides episodes at once simply because they're so connected to each other. Okay, this was weird and uncomfortable. I'm not even gonna lie, like, this is strange. So basically, Frankenstein wants a wife, or he will kill his creator's wife. The creator of Frankenstein obliges and creates him a wife, even though it takes time. And when she's born, she basically has the brain of a baby, and she's rapidly aging, mentally at least, somewhat rapidly. I don't know the exact time scale on this, but the next time we see her, she has the brain capacity of what I would deem a 5-year-old, which makes what happens later a little weird. Yeah, they just like smash cut to um smashing. Okay, this just felt so inappropriate. Why is this something that happened? It's so strange. It's like, okay, you didn't have to give her the mind of a baby. And then on top of that, Frankenstein goes and he kills the creator of him for that because he knows that he won't be able to get the bride. The bride doesn't like him, and that's like throughout the whole show. That's kind of a thing. And when it comes to the end of like the season, she just shoots him. She doesn't care about him. To me, Frankenstein just felt like a confused character for a couple of reasons. It seemed like they were trying to make him irredeemable in retrospect. Like, you're not supposed to care about him. He's a terrible person and he's not going to ever be a good person. But then they do all these things where they give him sweet moments, whether it's with Rick Flag in the present, whether it's with that old lady in the past who took care of him. You get the sense that it's like, why are they making him irredeemable? Specifically with the old lady, he kills her. Why did he have to do that? I get that she didn't want him to leave, but I think it would have been more tragic if somebody else killed her and Frankenstein couldn't stop her. Specifically, if they killed her because they were looking for Frankenstein, and Frankenstein took that as like, oh, this is what happens when I don't follow my purpose of getting with my bride. I end up hurting people. But no, it's done in the worst possible way they could do it. And also, Frankenstein and the bride just feel like such disconnected characters. They don't even seem to necessarily mesh together. Also, if they wanted to make Frankenstein such an irredeemable character, why did you have David Harbour voice him? You know, the character actor who's most known for just playing the cool father type. Like, I mean, he doesn't really give me creepy, weird stalker vibes. I'm sorry. Like, he's like the worst possible choice you could have chosen, especially since he's more like DC's Hellboy in the comics. Like, it just feels confused, man. Also, when it comes to the bride, her and Nina have some cool dynamic going on. And yeah, I'm going to talk about Nina's story a little bit later. But yeah, I like these two's dynamic, but we really don't get to see much of it, honestly. Nina has a lot of, interactions with G.I. Robot, but he dies in like episode 2 or something, which is sad. He comes back later, but Nina's not there for that. But there's this one scene with the bride and Nina that just made me kind of sick where they walk into a brothel and it's like a if you keep me hidden, I'll keep you safe type of deal. But it's like you have this female pimp talking about like how they should go and be prostitutes too, and that, it's just weird. And she talks about like she talks it up like it's a good profession, but then one of the girls gets beat up by some random guy who walks in and then the bride and Nina mess those guys up who it's just weird, man. It's so uncomfortable, and I just disliked it so much, honestly. It's just so strange. Also, the last episode is the Nina episode, which is why I'm talking about Nina last. Honestly, I didn't care that much about this character at first, but once we get to the last episode, her origin story is honestly the most tragic of all of them. Like, this girl just deserved more, if I'm gonna be, like, honest with you. Like, basically, she's just born with her lungs outside of her body and she's having all these breathing issues. Her dad keeps having to make these machines for her. At some point, he tries to save her by melding her with the DNA of animals, aquatic animals, I guess, to like help her breathe, but it goes terribly wrong. Her mother is not in her life because she can't stand having a child like that, and she would rather Nina just go to the afterlife. But at this, so she's just being raised by her single father. She's brought to school and she gets bullied and made fun of. And the whole time when she was on the whole Creature Commandos team, you were wondering why she was even there because she seems to have not a single violent bone in her body. Turns out her crime was literally just going into the sewers and living like that. Her dad ends up getting shot in one of the most confusingly fucked up scenes in the entire show. And yeah, so if you wanted to know the reason why she's on the Creature Commandos, there is no reason, which thematically I guess works, but also doesn't, because the last episode is where they decide to kill her. Yeah, they decide to kill her in the last episode. Basically, there's this whole subplot with the princess, where basically after they like defeated Cersei in like episode 2 or 3, there was like this clandestine prophecy that like the princess was gonna go and destroy the DC universe and stuff, and they believe her because of this interpreter girl, but it turns out that that's actually just a lie and she was actually Clayface. So the characters go and they try to kill her, and because she's in the water, Nina has to be the one to do it. And yeah, she basically gets fridged but for another female character, which is weird. Like, it's like I finally cared about this character and now you're gonna kill her. Okay, I mean, whatever. But Nina basically gets killed by the princess in self-defense. And then in like the last scene of the show, the bride shoots the princess and realizes that the Clayface was hired by the princess to make it look like the interpreter girl was not to be trusted. It's kind of like whatever. So they leave, and like it's kind of unsatisfying because the entire point that they wanted to prevent a war. That's what the whole show is about, and now it's not like that anymore, which is just strange, man. Like they did kill the princess. Like what is the fallout of this? Like the true last scene of the show is Amanda Waller just showing the new team, which is the new GI robot who's been like repaired, King Shark, and like I guess like 5 or 6 other characters. I don't remember. But this show just feels strange. It feels like a strange start to the DC universe. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. Talking about the show, yeah, there's a lot I enjoyed about it. I think the animation was great. They didn't try something new and fail. They have a pretty, basic art style that does what it needs to do in a lot of areas. It wasn't like incredibly impressive, but it wasn't disappointing like whatsoever. And overall, I feel like the show is just kind of uncomfortable at times, but pretty good overall. I just feel like the show needed like 10 more episodes, honestly, for it to make any sort of like real like impact. Feels like a strange start to the DC universe, but honestly, I think that part of that is just because of it was not supposed to be the start of the DC universe. Also, don't think that James Gunn wants this to be the follow up to his Superman movie, because I feel like that could create a lot of issues if a bunch of like kids and families who watch that Superman movie really like it and then say, hey, let's watch this animated show that's in the same universe, and then end up seeing this sort of stuff. Overall, there's a lot more I wanted to say, but honestly, like this review's way too long at this point, so like subscribe, I guess.
Seriously, if you want to dislike my video, just express yourself, Yeah, it's really not gonna make any difference.